Welcome to episode 28 of the Warrior Pulse. I am your host, Trey Heath.
Hold on a second. I'll be your host today. My name is Jay Colvin, the Vice President of Student Life here at Weber, and we're going to turn the tables here on Trey, and we're going to try something new. Trey started this podcast a while back, and we thought it would be a really great opportunity to do that. And we thought and it's gotten great so far. So we thought, let's get inside the mind of Trey Heath. Let's see what's happening inside there. Let's see what kind of things he thinks up as we go through it.
It's a dangerous place.
It is. So we've been friends for a long time. You've been here a long time. You know, you kind of have grassroots here. I think you may have grown up here. So we kind of want to pick your brain a little bit. What is it like being just in pretty much raised here as a child?
Well, when I first came to Weber in 1983, my dad was, I think, a basketball coach, maybe softball, and I was a 12-year-old kid around college kids. It's awesome. Like, you're like always the little kid, and so everybody lets you kind of in their world because you're innocent and you're cute. And so I got to do a lot of cool things. We lived on campus. We lived in the middle of the dorms there in between Grace and Camilla. We lived in that apartment for a bit, overseeing some special students. I got to go to these fine dinners. They used to have these dinners where the waiters would wear towels over their arms and serve you duck l'orange and filet mignon. And so I grew up in that atmosphere of being around older people as a younger person, so I've always had an appreciation for the older person in my life. But the funny thing is that appreciation for the college student, which at that point I was many years younger, and now I'm many years older, and I still have the appreciation for the college life, which I think you and I would still enjoy occasionally visiting.
Definitely. So you said you grew up here on campus. You actually lived here on campus. Back when you were far before that, before you should have been. What are some of the things that you've seen on campus that have changed throughout the years?
Oh man, well, recently the cafeteria, which looked almost the same in 1983 as it did until like a year ago, and that change has been amazing. The new dorms, we always had Camilla and Grace, the turf field. When I first started here, the tennis courts, the first two tennis courts, had grass on the perimeter of them. So when you would play, occasionally you'd fall off the back of the court into the grass before you got to the fence. There were trees, because I remember my racket got stuck in the trees by the pool, which are now lower. There's beach volleyball courts. There was nothing there. There used to be trees all behind the tennis courts. The growth of the school, I think at one point there were 250 students, 300 students, and now I don't know what the total number is, but it's way bigger and 2 to 3 times bigger than what it was then. So I think there's been growth, there's been loss. I mean, I don't know how many people know that this used to be a fashion school, hotel, motel, restaurant school, and that's why there was those fine dinners, because of the hotel, motel, restaurant. So.
Yeah, we've definitely come a long way, and those are things that we've talked about. I think everybody who comes on the podcast says how great it looks now. What do you think is the biggest and the best change so far? What are you most excited about here?
I had a few thoughts thinking about that, and what's funny is I think now the grass gets mowed, because originally, and this was way back when in the 80s, Dr. Cleveland, who was an amazing person, he used to say, like, no, let the grass grow, it goes to seed. So you would walk around this campus and grass would be knee high, because he wanted those seed pods to come out. And then as we realized that aesthetics mattered, the grass started getting mowed. Honestly, to me is the painting of the buildings. I think we are perceived by what people see. And when they see the buildings look good, well, guess what? That gives a positive thing. But you're asking the most important thing? Gosh, I think the growth of the athletics. The not only is there success within the athletics, but the teams growing and filling in some of those empty spots on campus. It's amazing. There is always something to do on this campus.
Yeah, very rarely can you walk around when there's not somebody working out or somebody on the practice field, somebody talking with the coach. Usually there's some form of athletics, whether it be punishment running out front, middle of the day, or practice, basically from 3 to 5. Talking about tennis, you've seen some ups and downs here. You've seen the program flourish, and then you've seen it, almost extinct. What are some of the things that you hope to revitalize in the program?
Well, not to get too personal, but I mean, this program was my dad's baby. I played for him. I coached with him. His other son played for him, and that little genius. When he was a little kid, kind of like when I was at Weber as a little kid, Tyler was at Weber as a little kid, and I'll never forget him analyzing players to put them in the right spot. He would occasionally make the lineups as a little kid, like a middle school, high school kid making lineups for dad. And he's like, I think you need to play this person here. They match up way better. And he was usually right. And during those heydays of the tennis program, we saw the team full, and most of the time it was full of international flair. And I'm talking Caribbean islands, European countries, South American, you name it, we had it here on campus. And over the past couple years, that luster of the program, and I think to maintain the high level is always difficult, but to maintain the program itself should not be that difficult. And over the past few years, the program has seen itself kind of wilt. And that's one of the reasons I was here, was to help save the tennis program, because it's not a moneymaker. It doesn't bring in a lot of recognition, except the quality of student that's on the team usually has been the positive for the program and for the school. If you look around statistically around the country, tennis players usually have some of the highest GPAs on each of their individual campuses, and it's never been any different than here at Weber as well. So the bad times are really bad, and they're really sad. And I know that if we could get the program back to where that family environment that Bill developed over all these years, I mean, their kids, we just had a guy come from Germany who now lives in Texas. They came for a 4-day vacation and stayed with Bill and Stella just so they could see the family again. And you don't get that in a lot of other sports.
Yeah, I think you've said it most. I've been to Bill's house, and a legendary person. Bill and Stella just do an absolutely amazing job bringing people in, and I think that's kind of what kind of got me stuck here as well, is that the school itself kind of ingrains in you family, and I think no one does that better than Bill and Stella. When you're there, you're family. You can't say no to food. You can't turn down food. So I mean, that's what kind of keeps, I think, those alumni keep coming back, and they open their house even now to them. What's one of the best piece of advice you think your dad has ever given you? I know there's, if you can say them here on camera.
Yeah, honestly, I thought about it the other day, and it really didn't have anything to do with tennis. It was, we grew up on the road. That's, if we weren't at a tennis tournament, we were at a race. If we weren't at a race, we were at some sort of event with Stella running the travel agency. I mean, most people don't know that she actually did a lot of the travel for the NFL for many years. So that afforded my parents the opportunity to travel, to take in events and also work events for one of the big security companies, CSC Security, which supplied a lot of jobs for Weber students because they would go work those events, concerts. I mean, we all got to see the coolest shows because of that connection that they had. And he told me one day, to make the long story longer, he told me one day, he's like, travel as much as you can, as often as you can, because one day you're going to wake up and you're not going to leave the house. And I have held on to that as I near 50. All I want to do is go. I just want to go. And he reached that point where he was like, yep, I'm ready to be at home, because he always was on the go. Like, that was his thing. During tennis season, he would lose weight because he wouldn't eat, because they would drive the van to the matches and he would sit and watch his team eat, and he'd go have a cigarette and talk to, call home or think about what they did wrong or what they did right. And he woke up one day and said, I mean, we used to go to Indianapolis 500, and I remember the last time we went as a family, he was like, yeah, this trip's getting harder, and I'd just rather just fly up. And it's like, he just reached that, and I'm not there yet. So I think that's the advice I hold on to, is travel as much as you can, as often as you can, because one day you're going to wake up and you're not going to want to.
Yeah, I mean, your life here is about family, I think, and in Weber, I think that's all together. Speaking of your family, like, didn't your wife go to school here as well?
Oh, no, my wife is a Royal.
Oh.
She's a Polkin, USFN, and then her master's was at Warner, so she's the dark side.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, most of the family, I think my sister got something from here. My brother, myself, my stepmom, my dad. My dad didn't go to school here; he just worked here. And then the only relative that didn't was my youngest sister. She actually was she was spread her wings and became an eagle at Florida Gulf Coast. But I think that kind of broke my dad's heart, because I think he would have loved for her to play under him as well.
Mm-hmm. Definitely so. So what are some things that you've learned here since you did graduate from here? You have another business, as you just said. Or what's some things that you can use from here to take into your other business?
Whew. There's been a lot. There's so many good professors, and the funny thing is actually Grady McClendon was a marketing professor here way back in the day, and his ideas, even though time moves on and we're digital, it's a lot of those philosophies. One of my favorite classes was Dr. Orphan Dacus, who the original Dr. O. He was business ethics. And that was one of my favorite classes, because I remember one day reading the answer out of the book. And he said, well, why do you feel that way? I said, well, the answer's in the book. He says, why do you feel that way? And I didn't really have an answer for him, because I was reading the answer out of the book. And he made me understand that business isn't emotional a lot, but there is a reason that people do things they do. And it doesn't matter if they can see it in print, they want to feel something from you. And that really opened up my eyes to, you have to get people to understand why they need what you're offering, or why they want what you're offering, not just because, hey, it's there. And I think that's that family culture that Weber instills in you as well. And I think also I learned at Weber, be available to people. This campus, the professors here, you're not a number. I can't tell you how many times players have meetings with professors. Professors are involved in other things. I would love to get more professors out to events, but professors are involved in other things. And it's amazing to me that a student can just go to their office and talk to that professor, not some grad assistant.
Yeah, we definitely, our professors are wide open. I mean, that's what I would always sell to an athlete when I was recruiting, and that's what I tell the parents now. It's that you're going to get actual teachers teaching, so that's very important here. You also mentioned some other things that you do, maybe going traveling, doing things like that. What's one place that you haven't been that you'd love to go? And then also on top of that, what's the one place that you love going to?
It's going to sound really weird, but I am a homer, because I love being in the U.S. Had the opportunity to go to Germany, Northern Italy, and France when I was right after college. Loved it. One of the places I haven't been to that I've always wanted to go to is New Zealand. I've had a player from New Zealand. I've had some players from Australia. I follow a lot of motorsports stuff, and it just seems like an absolutely gorgeous place. So that's where I would like to go. But that being said, there's 50 states in the U.S., and each of those states offers something amazing. And it's crazy. My nephew actually is in the room with us today, and he races off-road quads. And some of the most fun places we go to are in the middle of nowhere. You're literally in the middle of nowhere, but the beauty, you wake up at 7:30 in the morning and the sun's rising. All of a sudden you hear the crack of a motorcycle, and it's my place. If you put me at a racetrack, whether it's Sebring or out in the woods in South Carolina at an off-road GNCC race, I'm going to be the happiest place. That is, we walk around Sebring and I barely watch the race. I just listen and take in the sights, and it is such a peaceful thing for me.
Do you realize you're becoming your dad, or? I just didn't know if you're aware of that, because it's most certainly happening, which is a good thing. You're into dirt bike racing, I think, and you did some off-road driving and things like that. Is that correct?
Yeah,
some racing.
My dad raced cars. My grandfather raced cars. They did. It's called SCCA. It's amateur road racing. So if you know what like the Daytona Speedway is, my dad raced on the road circuit part of that. And racing was always something that was in my blood. I raced BMX as a kid, so pedal bikes, like motocross on bicycles, and we traveled all over the country doing that. And I always loved racing. It's just in me. I love it. I can't get around it. But I could never afford to go race cars like my dad did way back when. And I was like, my buddy's like, well, buy a motorcycle. You can go race motocross. And I was 30 years old when I learned how to ride. And I didn't really like the jumping at 30 years old because the falling hurt. Mm-hmm. But I had another friend that said, I want to thank Chuck Crowley. He was the deputy chief in Lake Wales, and he and his son raced off-road and woods racing. Hey, you get to go race for 2 hours, and then you're done, and you can hang out and talk to people, and it's a great weekend. And so I went and did it, and I've been doing it ever since. And it's just awesome. It's you versus this course. Yes, you're racing other people, but it's such an individual thing. I only go as fast as my right hand will twist. And when I get nervous, I slow down. And I want to win, but I also like coming into the office on Monday morning.
Yeah,
so,
there you go.
For a young kid like him, if they crash, they recover and they move on. For us, we break a little harder.
Yeah, just getting up from the couch is a chore nowadays, right? Let's try to get back to tennis a little bit. Who was your favorite player growing up to watch?
Ooh, man. I came in the backside of the McEnroe, Connors, those guys, and I kind of got into the Pete Sampras, Agassi era, and I'm going to have to say Agassi. Andre Agassi, the way that he struck the ball so early, I didn't really care about the wild hair and the clothes. I mean, some of his clothes were disgusting. We all wore them, but really think about it, like that was bad fashion. Mm-hmm. But the way he struck a tennis ball was beautiful. And so probably in that era of when me growing up, he was my favorite player. More modern would be Federer, although that still makes me old because now there's Thiem and these other guys. But it probably went Agassi and then Federer. And then before that was probably McEnroe, just because I had a pretty bad temper.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know your brother, he could definitely relate to that as well. Many broken tennis rackets for them. You did say earlier, and I meant to ask you, you said earlier about a tennis racket in a tree. How'd that get there?
Yeah, I only missed one college match in 4 years of playing. I had a pretty bad temper, but I was able to control it most of the time. And one day, I'm sorry, Tyson Elliott, to this day, I still apologize. I think we were playing Lynn, or probably at that point it was College Boca Raton before it was Lynn. And I must have hit the weakest second serve, and they teed off on a forehand and hit Tyson right in the eyebrow. And that's immediate bleeding because there's nothing there. And he bled and we lost and I was angry. So I wrapped my racket at the end of the match. I wrapped my racket around the post and then just tried to launch it into the pool. But I think it ended up hitting the palm trees that used to be there instead. And I was delivered a note by my coach, but at that point was acting as my dad that, hey, your attitude wasn't good. Left me a note and told me that I would be suspended for the UCF match the next day. We lost 5-4. I'm almost 50 and that one still burns today. So I always talk about man, you got to check it. There's always a consequence for everything. But yeah, I tried to launch it in the pool.
Yeah, and you missed.
I missed.
All right. Is there and this could be touchy here, what is the best Weber team you've ever had? And I'm sure there'll be debates about this for a long time. I've been at your house and I've listened to your brother and your dad speak on it. Yeah. So I don't know if you can say it. If you can't, that's okay too.
No, and I think for me there were some years that I wasn't around the Weber program, but the teams were still really good. But I'm going to go back to the last year I was here as an assistant coach. I was working mostly with the women's team. But the men's team that year, I think that was the year that they were ranked 4 in the countries to start the year. Joe Gruen and Wojtek had won the small college nationals in doubles. Joe had won it in singles. He was ranked number 1 in the country. And they went to this tournament called the Elite 8 that was held by, I Oklahoma City, Oklahoma Baptist, one of those NAIA schools that may not even exist anymore. And it was the top 8 teams in the country, and they beat number 2 and number 1 on the same day. And it was like, oh, they got a shot for the national title. Rogerio Martins, right before Nationals, tore his ACL, and you weren't allowed to make substitutions. And back when NAIA tennis was great, it was a 256 open draw at Nationals. You went in the open draw, and you might play the number 1 from a team as the number 5, and you just, every match you won was points. And that year, Weber was like, they were going to make it far. The number 5 was probably going to make it 4 or 5 rounds into the tournament, which is a lot of points. And when Rogerio went down with the busted knee, they ended up still finishing 4th with 5 players. So that's pretty good. But I think that may have been the best team. There were some others that I think were as equally as talented, but the success that team had, I think, was unparalleled. Tyler can probably fix that.
That's a yes, I'm sure. Is there anyone you still stay in touch with? Any alumni, any guys you played with, any guys you used to coach that you still stay in touch with?
Very passively. Social media is a great thing. It's also a curse because you feel like you're keeping up with somebody because of something they post. I actually have a struggle, and I don't know if it's age or whatever. I forget when I played here, and I forget who I played with and who I coached. Yeah. So, like, there's guys, Philip Mayer, we still talk to, Martin Brocky. I don't think I ever played with Martin, but he lives in South Florida now, and we stay in contact. Wandell Bruner was here for 2 years, and then he went to St. Thomas. I don't really see the first great Weber player, Robin Schneider, very much. And by the way, for the real story, people thought Robin was going to be a girl. Because, this is before big internet stuff. 1990, he sent in his resume. My dad thought he was a female tennis player and was offering, I'm so excited I'm going to get this really good woman. Well, he ended up being a really good guy. Sebastian Granon. There's so many, like I mentioned, Tyson Elliott. There's so many that I don't keep up with. I see things, but I don't keep up with them as well as I should. I was kind of a loner when it came to that. I like everybody, everybody kind of went and did their thing, and I was always here, so I just had new people coming all the time. So you just kind of cycled through them. Dad did a much better job of keeping up.
Right, definitely. Well, you mentioned social media, and this is kind of part of that. This kind of gets out there and gets your story out. So I think it's a good way. I think you've definitely captured the audience of parents and alumni and former players, things like that, just to get involved with it. Where do you get your passion to do this type of thing?
I don't know, because deep down inside, I'm actually an introvert. I'm super introverted. I know no one does, but I've actually been tested introvert. But I love learning about people. These same people that I sit and interview, we interviewed a bowler the other day. I had so much fun. I probably would not have spoken to her in public because I'll do my thing, you do your thing. But in this environment, to sit down and learn about somebody, I just find it awesome. Like, I just want to learn more and more, and I find their story so uplifting, and I find like what they're doing and their dreams and their desires. But when I work with my own team, I want to know what's going on in their life too, and I push them. And as one of my coaching buddies said, you always ask pointed questions because you wanted the wrong answer. You wanted them to give you the answer that they thought that you wanted to hear. And I'm like, yeah, I just want to know the truth. I want to know their truth. And I think that's why I enjoy it. And I think it's important for there to be someone. I do have a passion for the kids. I have a passion for the staff. I have a passion for all that. And I don't mind putting myself out there for that story to be told. This is really odd. Like, you doing this to me is really odd. But I also have a story too. And it doesn't get told unless someone asks. So my thought is let me be that person that asks those questions.
Yeah. All right. So who would you love to interview, right? Who would you like to sit on the opposite side and have that interview with?
A Weber person?
Well, let's start with the Weber person, then we'll just go with anybody.
Honestly, I think it would be cool because I think it would be neat, especially being tennis centric. I think it would be neat to have my dad's recollection, my brother's recollection of his time here and all the things he did. And to make a pool answer, I think every first year program, someone from those teams, like the first year football, the first year baseball, some like those programs, and like what was it like? I mean, I remember my dad telling us like stories. They would go to volleyball games in a cargo van, or a softball, maybe it was a softball in a cargo van. Like they didn't even have seats in the vans. I'm like, can you imagine now? Oh my goodness. But those things are just amazing to me. But let's see, I think it'd be awesome to interview. I'd like another go of Ron Weber, honestly.
He's got a good story.
Yeah, I'd like another go of him. And to be honest, you know, I know that he's on everybody's hit list for different things at different times, but Prez. Yeah. I mean, the Prez is cool. And then outside, man. Outside. God, there's so many. I think local business people. I think local business people and wonder why they don't know where Weber is. I think that would be awesome. Get their story and tell it through the Weber lens to get them excited about what Weber has to offer and get them excited about the kids and, you know, find out about it. Man, one of my friends is a local business owner. He is one of the coolest businesses. He's a surfer. And my other friend owns another business, and he will get up early in the morning, look at the wind charts, and go kite surf before he comes in. It's like, but if you don't know that about them, and those are cool stories. So kind of boring answer. I don't really have anybody famous because I like them for what they do. I don't really care about them as people.
Sure. Well, I've taken up a lot of your time. Hopefully I didn't do too much. I don't know how long you planned on spending today. What's a general thought that you wish people would know about the university? What's something that you wish you could get up? If you wanted someone to know something about Weber, what would it be?
Everything you do in life is a commitment, and coming to Weber is a commitment. It's not the cheapest, it's not the biggest, but the family atmosphere that Weber offers, the personal touch that you're going to receive from the cafeteria staff, from the admissions staff, from your professors, from your coaches. It's crazy to me. We see all the, especially like you look at these hard-nosed sports, and their coaches care about the kids. Yes, we are bound by numbers, but we like the numbers that we have to have. We like those, like, it's not number 41, it's Johnson. It's Susie. She's the 15th player on the roster, but she matters to me. And that to me is something that Weber gives more than it takes. And I think that's something that we need to sell ourselves more on, is how much that we actually give to the kids. The kids don't get it at 18 years old. They get it at 35 when they've reached out and they're like, hey, I'm getting ready to do this job, and hey, I wonder if Professor so-and-so is still there and could give me a recommendation. That's when they realize it.
Right. And it's also great watching the students grow. I mean, you
Yes.
bring them in as a young freshman, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and then graduate, let's just say, from boys to men, you know what I mean? And they really do. And not just physically, but mentally and just overall as a person. And I think that's one of the things that you do especially well. I know some of your athletes that you've brought in, I've watched and then graduate, and it's been awesome. And I think a lot of the coaches do that as well. Almost all of our coaches, I'd say, do that. Actually, I was out at the football field yesterday. I was going home, and I just stopped to watch because lacrosse was going and football was going kind of at the same time, getting ready to break. And I don't know exactly what happened, but the lacrosse coach, something didn't go right with the team. So he went out and lit into him for a little bit, and he gave it a second, and then he went back over and talked to him. He had to correct it, and then he also wanted to make sure that he knew that he still cared. That's just a small thing. That happens everywhere, but I know we do especially well here.
And that's real life. I mean, if you don't do your job well, you don't keep your job. You don't get promotion. You don't, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand is we're in an athletic-centric school. Yes, we want to win, but we also want to grow. We want our students to grow, and if we're not getting our message across, we can't control if we win or lose on the field. That's the game. That's why we play the game. We can control how our players play on the field, and we're recruiting talent, the talent that we can get, and then we work within that talent. And yeah, when they're not doing what you think they can do, you got to come down on them. But you also, they should know that that's out of love, not out of just our desire to win. And I think that's something that a lot of coaches here do. We do it in different voices. You know, I've heard the lacrosse coach and I hear the football team out there, and I hear the softball. That's where tennis is so centric. We get to hear everything. And like you say, walking around this campus, there's always something going on, and you can't help but feel like you want to do more because of that environment.
Tell you what, the best day you can have here, I think, is you get up, you come to work, you stop by Starbucks, you get a coffee, and then you just kind of walk around, especially on a day like today when it's just perfect outside. Weather's perfect, the sun is shining, you just can't beat it. And then you hang around long enough, you can watch practices and games. So,
I'll tie into that. We do some of my ladies have done 7:30 practices. If you get here early enough, you can watch the sun come up. And then you stay here in the afternoon, whether you go out to the baseball field and sit through the sunset delay, or you go out to the dock and watch the sunset fall into the lake. Those spaces between the sunrise and the sunset, you will find stuff to keep you entertained. Whether it's athletes moving about, going to Starbucks, watching the sandhill cranes raise their babies, watching the squirrels do their thing. There is always something happening, and that sunrise time and that sunset time on this campus are two of the most peaceful moments that you can ever experience. It's almost like being in a tranquil park.
I think you just set a new marketing campaign for us. Between sunrise and sunset, there's always something going on. I'll have to bring that up with admission and see what we can do. I think that's all the questions I have. Is there anything that you think the viewers should know? What do we need to know about Trey that we didn't cover today?
I've been here a long time. I love this place. It means a lot to me. But I'm also not stuck that this is how Weber was. Things change, things grow, things, businesses. Think about us now and think about how many businesses that we used to frequent aren't around anymore. And Weber has made it through. I think we're just celebrating our 95th year. Mm-hmm. That's a long time for any institution to be in business. And we've put out a lot of great graduates. And I hope that there's a lot of great graduates left to come. And I hope there's a lot of great graduates left to come in tennis. But I think that's the biggest thing is there's a lot of good things happening, and I want to be a part of those. And just because I was here when there were 250 students doesn't mean I don't want to be here when there's 1,300 students. I get that things change, and I get that growth, and I want to be a part of watching the campus explode. It's so cool. I mean, today they're putting up a new cover at the soccer field for fans. They're making enhancements. There's something going on, and that's so cool. We noticed it on our way in today. They're putting up new screen shade for fans. That's cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you're right. There's always something going on. There's always something changing and growing here, and that's what we like, and that's where we are. Trey, I appreciate your time. Thanks for letting me sit on this side of it. I know it's been a little bit different. This was awesome, and this is kind of, I enjoyed doing this. So I think you're doing a great job with the podcast. The school definitely is better for it. And we like working with you. So if there's anything else, man, just let us know. I really do appreciate this.
Well, you got to take us out.
I don't know how you take it out.
Well, I have not been your host today, but thank you for joining us, Jay. Thank you very much for for flipping it around on us today, and we'll see you next time on the Warrior Pulse podcast. Bye bye.